My why is to really impact women and girls, especially. I think my why really comes, and most of our whys. I think if you drill down on it, it can be something that you were gifted with, or blessed with, or have a talent at. But usually our whys are inspired by either the environments that we grow up in, and or a pain point.
All right, you guys, we are here with Ty Beauchamp. This woman is amazing. First of all, I mean, your light, your glow, your energy, what you bring the world is just so epic. And I'm so honored to have you here speaking with us today.
I am so happy to be here because the first time we met was when we were both doing the Harry Connick Jr. show.
Yeah.
I had heard your name before, but didn't know you personally. Mm-hmm. And you were coming on doing this amazing yoga. And then I was like, I'm moving to LA. It was around the time I was still living in New York or going back and forth. And so it's good to be here in your space in sunny LA.
And you're here now. We got you.
Technically,
LA has you.
Technically.
Don't do it.
No, so honestly, I am in a uber space of transition right now that has been probably the longest transition in the entire world or universe. I've been here for the last 2 years, but traveling extensively, both with work and family, pleasure, and then I was shooting a travel show. LA, I love what LA represents as a lifestyle. So that was part of the reason that I came out here. But right now, legit, I am in between places. I don't have a home anywhere. I'm just traveling and trying to figure out whether or not I'm going to keep planted in LA, whether or not I'm going to go to New York, whether or not I'm going to go to London, whether or not I'm going to go to Paris, whether or not I'm going to go to Bali. Wow. So when we start talking like for real, like what's really going on in Ty Beauchamp's life, what I will say is that God's grace, amen.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Way to open up.
That's a beautiful way to open. So just to let you know, she's kind of fierce. No big deal. Yes. And so, my whole thing is, my book, Let Your Fears Make You Fierce. And you've done that time and time again. When did you really know, and I know you've done a lot of things, very multidimensional. What do you feel like in high school and college, what do you feel like was that first, I guess, light bulb switch to say, this is what I want to do. I want to do this, this, and this.
What I will tell you is that I think I've had many of those light bulb moments, which is why I've always pivoted and have been able to pivot, because I'm never attached to the what. Mm-hmm. I'm attached to my why. Right. And so my attachment to my why dictates and predicates where and how I move and when I move, which is, I flunked out of biology during college at Spelman, so I knew I wasn't going to be a doctor anymore. It was like, okay, I'm out of there. I sat down with a mentor who knew that I had loved fashion and I had some experience in the fashion industry as a teenager. I modeled, and so I loved fashion, but I was always a writer. And he said, why don't you become a fashion writer? I was like, ding, ding, ding. Of course, that makes sense, right? Like, why wouldn't I do that? I love magazines. Harper Bazaar was plastered all over my wall. I loved storytelling and magazines. And so that was a ding ding moment.
Right.
And, I was fortunate to be able to work at some amazing titles and amazing brands at the height of the publishing career industry. And
you were very young. You were the youngest African-American woman
to become beauty director at 17 magazine when I was 25. So this was before Instagram.
Right.
I'm 42, so this was 17 years ago.
Wow.
And so 17 years ago.
And you don't look a day older than 25.
Thank you. I'm trying. Listen, someone asked me, a guy friend of mine asked me what my training goals were. I was like, to feel 20 years younger, to look between 10 and 15, to look between 10 and 15 years younger. Mm-hmm. And to when I decide to have a baby in the next year or two with the partner and the husband, to be able to bounce back and get back to this body in 8 months. So those are my traits. So thank you. I work at it very, very hard.
Amen. And continuing the fierceness.
Right. Look, I mean, it's work.
Yeah. It looks really good.
Yeah.
What would you say has been, like having that at such a young age?
Yeah.
And having that level of success. I know that brings up a lot of, okay, I got to keep setting the bar.
Yeah.
It's like when you hit goals, people think it's going to stop. No, you just set more goals, right?
Facts.
There wasn't like, oh, I've arrived.
Facts.
And you said something too I want to dive a little bit into is your why.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of accolades.
Yeah.
And what is your why?
My why is to really impact women and girls, especially. I think my why really comes, and most of our whys, I think if you drill down on it, it can be something that you were gifted with or blessed with or have a talent at. But usually our whys are inspired by either the environments that we grow up in and or a pain point. Recognizing that there is something that you can fix and only your gifts, your talents, and your passions can help fix it. And so I think for me, my why is celebrating and empowering women and girls. And the reason why that's important to me is because my grandmother did it for me. My other grandmother did it for me. My mother did it for me. My cousins did it for me. I went to an all-girls high school. I went to an all-women's college. So those really inspired my why. My closest girlfriends do it for me when I'm not feeling my best. And so that's the trigger, and I think the impetus for my why. And I said with that, when you understand business, which is something I'm very passionate about, I mean, it's so interesting having become talent and moving in front where, you've done some research, but most younger people who see me now in the fashion space or on TV or on camera don't realize that I've had this background of creating and building brands like Oprah Magazine, like 17, and helping to design those, Vibe Vixen, or working with brands like Procter & Gamble and Walmart and InStyle.
Right. You put a lot of skin in the game.
Yeah,
as they would say.
But a lot of people don't necessarily know that. I think also when you're a physical and aesthetic person,
right,
there is this marginalization of it. But also I built my own company that I've had for 14 years, even though every day I'm like, oh, am I doing this again? Because entrepreneurship is not easy. And so I also think it's so amazing that everyone sees it like as the holy grail. But in that holy grail, there is a serious cross to bear as well. And it takes a lot. So you asked about like, how do you stay excited and fearless as you pivot and you move. And I think for me, what has been critical is not a desire to stay relevant, but a desire to impact in new ways. Because once it would be one thing, no shade to anyone who works in publishing or who is a traditional journalist or writer, but the reality is that industry progresses, right? And so as industry is progressing as it is right now, the value of the impact changes and shifts if you're still staying a magazine editor. So I was always thinking about ways that I could create more impact and really celebrate people, women and girls especially, but connect to my why. So when I left publishing the first time, it was part burnout. They wore me out. I was worn out. And I was 26 years old, right? And having had all of this status, all of the eyes on me, and and quite frankly, not having the wisdom. Because let me just tell you, 26-year-old, you might be gifted, you might be talented, you might be passionate, but wisdom comes with age, living, and experience. And so I didn't have the wisdom, but what I did do and did have was wherewithal to figure out a way that I was going to feel like my why was really important and mattered. And so I built a program that is still institutionalized at Rutgers University. It's a job readiness training program that trains thousands of kids every year in Newark, New Jersey. So I started that 13 or 14 years ago. And I've just always been trying to figure out ways that I can impact. So quite frankly, this period of transition for me right now is not about me not having a physical space or hub or place to be, but it's about really being thoughtful and intentional about how I'm going to impact more people, and not for any reason that is vanity or ego. I actually was having a conversation with a friend the other day who attended an event with me, and people would be very surprised to know, like, I can get on stage and own the stage. I can present. I can, do all of that and happily and gloriously. But I'm an introvert, so I don't necessarily get all of my energy from external sources.
Right.
It's sitting still in an amazing space and being focused and being in prayer. So I was overwhelmed. I'm like, this is great. Hi, everyone. Hey, 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 hey. He was like, I think you said hi to like about 45 people. I was like, probably.
Wow.
And, I think in this space of social media elevation and social media growth, you have individuals who are able to present because it's a flat form and it's not an engaging platform.
Right.
And we take for granted really what human connection and the importance of human connection is in that space. So I'm learning a lot about myself, and I think during this transition, it's just about recognizing that the gifts, the talents, and the passions that I have, I want to use them for good, and I want to impact more people. Yeah,
That's beautiful.
So I'm figuring out how to do that.
So let's talk about it a little bit, because I feel like I meet a lot of women in that transition space.
Yeah.
Of going to, especially having a yoga teacher training school, I have a lot of women that have gone from that 9 to 5 or gone to that burnout job where I'm like, look, I'm done. This is burnout. I'm being overused, overworked, or maybe I'm doing a lot, but I'm not really being able to express myself like I want to express myself. So they kind of self-care, self-love, get their yoga certification or go through the course just to love themselves up. But then they're stuck to where, but how am I going to make that kind of money? And you have a lot of experience with that. So can you kind of help the person listening just kind of how to get from like that point of, okay, I had all this talent, I was using it, I had all the money I wanted, the accolades, I'm a young now entrepreneur, but I can only make so much teaching a yoga class.
Yeah.
And so what do you have?
First and foremost, this is going to be an unpopular thing to say, but the reality is everyone is not going to earn the type of living that they desire to earn just because they're passionate about something. It's facts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just unfortunately, when we look at how business and entrepreneurship works, you need people who are to purchase your services. And so we have oversaturation of certain industries. And
So you don't feel like there's space for everybody?
I don't think that it's realistic that everyone is going to earn and everyone's going to be the Koya Webb. It's just not, it's not fact. I think that drills down on numbers, supply and demand.
Right.
That's business.
Right.
What I do believe is that everyone needs to be able to apply and employ their gifts, their talents, and their passions. You have to have an outlet for it. Now, you might not necessarily do it as a full-time living.
Right.
That's just reality. So I think that, similar to what I say to young people as we talk about social media, and, there are influencers who are making millions, there are influencers who are making tens of thousands, there are some who are making hundreds of thousands, and then there are other people who call themselves influencers and making nothing.
So what's the difference? What is the key to getting to those 100,000s versus someone is like, I'm trying, but I'm not, it's not working for me?
There are so many factors. Everyone doesn't have that. First of all,
The it factor? Is it the it factor?
It's not just about an it factor. It's like, that's not for everyone. I think part of the challenge right now in the space that we live in is that everyone believes that because they're beautiful, because they have a talent, because they're gifted, because they're passionate, that should be enough. Supply and demand does not work that way. So the tipping point is going to happen. And I'll give you this case in point. I saw a friend's daughter who I hadn't seen in a while, 11-year-old. And I said, oh my God, you have grown so much. What are you doing good at school? Like, how's happening? She's like, oh, who likes school? I said, I understand. I was like, I get it. I get it, mine. Like, I get it. I understand. Like, but you got to go and kill it. Like, you're practicing, you're developing, strength and muscles to exercise resilience for when certain things don't work out the same you want. That's life. Well, what do you want to be when you grow up? TikTok famous. Ma'am. So is everybody going to be TikTok famous?
Right.
First of all, TikTok is not going to be around in 15 years. So the efforts that you've put into being TikTok famous, rather than developing a skill set, a talent that is going to be applicable, that you can actually fine-tune, reinvent, pivot to have sustainability and long-term. Yeah, So to answer your question, what I say is that if you have an outlet and it gives you so much joy, those things that you do, when you are able to employ your gifts, your talents, your passions. I talk about this in Beyond Ready, which is my online learning platform. When you employ your gifts, your talents, and your passions, you should feel so fulfilled that gives you energy to do the certain things that I don't want to do. You think I feel like looking at QuickBooks? You think absolutely not. Do you think that I feel like sometimes writing presentations? Absolutely not. What I'm great at is presenting and coming up with ideas. Do you think I feel like researching certain things? Absolutely not. So the reality is that entrepreneurship, I think, is an outlet and a vehicle that we should all explore to some degree. But the reality of believing that everyone is going to make millions being an entrepreneur is a fallacy.
Yeah. But what is it that you feel like the people that get it? And because I feel like there are some, everyone's not going to do it. True. Facts, right? We know that. We see that, facts. But I do believe that there's some things that people do
to do it successfully. Okay, so what are the tools that most successful or people who achieve? I have a problem with the word success. I struggle with that.
And we can unpack that too. We can unpack that next, because
I struggle with the word success. You can kind of hear that I'm probably a lot more thoughtful about the status quo than most people, where I'm always trying to drill down, so looking at what happens pragmatically and practically, and then how do we fuel that and advance that from an emotional, spiritual, and psychological standpoint.
I think I'm
very pragmatic, though.
Right, I think that's a beautiful thing, because if someone should be focused on doing something that makes their soul sing rather than making six figures, then that's the thing.
But the challenge is now everyone believes that
six figures is going to make them happy.
Six figures is going to make them happy, or we attach dollars to our soul, which is the commercialization of everything to begin with anyway. So, we have to, I think, look at them sometimes as mutually exclusive entities and prioritize what is of the greatest value to us at a given moment, right? So if it's being soulful, if it's being intentional about the core, feed that, fuel that. When you got to pay bills, feed that and fuel that too, right? I'm just saying. So I think that there has to be some harmony in that. And
I think also we can pivot all the way through this conversation,
cool.
That's me, that's you, and that's the way we're going with this conversation. So,
you were asking about some of the specific tips. So here's the other thing. Okay, let me give you some specifics.
But I'm going to give you a little bit more dialed in on that. Yeah. So specific tips for someone who wants to be financially stable and abundant pursuing their passion.
Okay. So first and foremost, and I'm going to do this in the context of recognizing that there is not a lack of desire amongst anyone to be in that space. So first and foremost, I think differentiate yourself with real skill. Real skill. I imagine that, perhaps Oprah's not doing this at this point, but I know even at my stage right now, if I'm going out for an audition, I call my coach. I still. Oh
yeah, Oprah has 2 coaches.
I still work with coaches, right? You know what I mean? So there is no get to a place, get the certification from. How can you continue to advance? So I think oftentimes when people call themselves experts, I'm usually like question mark. How do you substantiate that?
Right.
And how do you resubstantiate that? Time and time again, because industry is constantly evolving, especially with the advancement and the access that we have to information. So that's first and foremost. The other thing is that I believe wholeheartedly, and I don't know if I've just got to this place at 42 years old. No, I got there probably about 3 or 4 years ago. Partner. You don't have to be on an island doing things. Figure out ways to develop strategic partners. I think also, especially for women, especially Black women, I will say. I was blessed with the gift and the misinformation of my mother and my grandmother, who told me not to depend on anyone. And so what that seeded in me was not only deep drive, which is amazing, but it also seeded and fueled within me the thought that I had to do it alone because no one else was going to be there with me doing it. As someone who has been an entrepreneur for the last 14 years, what I know now is that I would have partnered strategically early. Since we're in this space of wellness, love, abundance, coaching, yoga, health, meditation, Oprah partnered with the King brothers. You know, their partnership is essential. And so as you're building your business, figure out ways, if not to have a business partner, figure out ways to have a consortium and a group of people that you can rely on, one, for support and insight, but also that you can build business with.
Right.
Recognize, to your point of understanding abundance, that there is plenty of it out there for all of us, right? So that's the other thing. The other thing is, you know, business plans are obviously necessary when you're looking to get funding. But the other thing is, be willing to pivot. Don't be so married to an idea for an extended period of time if insights from industry are telling you that it's going in a different direction.
Right.
So I think so many times we're so fixated on whatever that one idea is. What is the opportunity to expand and or to curtail, in some ways, our thinking about it. The other thing is that I actually don't think there's anything wrong with having a full-time job while you build your business.
Yeah.
You know, when people say to me, I'm quitting, I'm like, okay, but again, your gifts, your talents, and your passions on their own won't pay the bills. And I'm also a believer that we're not meant to struggle. I believe that there is meant to be healthy stretching. I believe that we're meant to be expanded, but we're not meant to struggle. So I think oftentimes when you take that on, you know, unnecessarily, then it creates this push-pull. And then lastly, when it comes to business, one of the things that I've learned, make sure you hire a good bookkeeper, make sure you have the right accountant, and make sure you have the right financial advisor.
Yeah.
That's really, really important. And I think to just say you're an entrepreneur, substantiate that with having those people around you in order to help you really build.
Right. I have to definitely second that, because I remember finding my, accountant and business advisor. And I remember telling them, like, I need you, because if I know I got someone keeping my money straight, I can feel confident when I go out there and secure multiple streams of income.
Exactly.
Because it's scary when you think about taxes and people going to jail. And, there's been a lot of people, entrepreneurs, and they just stacking coin. It's like, but you got to think about how you're doing it, the people you're hiring, how you're hiring. You got to pay attention to laws. Like, it's not just to, like, make money however you want to make.
All those things.
And
all
so
those things.
I think that's really, really great advice. And I think a lot of people don't look at that and they feel like, oh, I can just do this thing because I saw someone else did it on Instagram and made this money. And they're like, wait, why are they in jail? What happened?
What happened? What happened?
But I think that's such a good thing to kind of point on. And also, because I haven't done this on the podcast before, like, I don't know how much you're into, like, investing and stuff like that, but I would definitely want to chat about that.
I'm happy. So I have invested sometimes foolishly in other businesses. And I also, quite frankly, have learned a lot from my own financial mistakes, because I recycled at one point. When I was in New York, I had a staff of 8 people, had an office, and, so I was recycling money back into the business. One of the other things I learned is, like, especially if you have a product, probably less so as a full service, but no, hindsight is 20/20. When I started the Thai Life, had I known really where the internet was going to go, I should have started it probably like 5 years before. And I could have easily probably sold it somewhere. But when I went into the market with it, it was an oversaturation, right? And so it's not going to work. But I think the other thing is, if see who's willing to invest in your business. That's always a good indication of whether or not you have a solid business model, whether or not you've thought about the multiple revenue streams, whether or not you have support and interest from people, not just friends and family. And obviously, the first round of getting investment is usually friends and family, but show it to people who are non-friends and family, who are real investors, to see whether or not they think it's a viable idea. And I don't think it's anything wrong with getting investment. That holds you accountable, and it holds other people accountable to support you in your growth of your business too. So I think it's meant, that's something else too with starting a business. I was like, I believe in having a board of advisors. And not people that are just going to be your cheerleaders and be like, yeah, girl, you did it. Yeah, I believe in you. I believe in you. The people who are going to ask the critical questions of you. So that you're thinking differently, which is what I'm in the process of doing right now. I'm literally in the process of putting together a self-survey that I'm sending out to both personal friends and professional friends to find out how they see me and how they view me and where they think there's white space and white space for me to grow, both professionally and personally. So.
That's huge. I think that's so important. I remember I sent out a similar questionnaire, and I was shocked by people that were like, I'm not going to, that are scared to tell you the truth.
Oof. Yeah.
And I'm like, I wonder,
I really want to know.
Are you really my friend? I'm like, because I don't want you to feel like, one, I got all the answers. I got everything figured out. And you could tell me anything. What else are you telling me that you're not telling me because you think you're going to hurt my feelings? It might help me grow.
It should.
And so I think that's a beautiful thing to be able to reach out to your friends because they know you the best. They see you every day. And I'm so grateful for the friends and family members that wrote back because some of the advice that I've gotten from the closer has helped me profoundly, even about spending time.
Wow.
And this is one thing I want to unpack too. I remember one of the thing that feedback I got the most is that you don't spend enough personal time with people. And so this year, 50% work, 50% self-care, and hanging out. Seeing my family.
It's part of the self-care.
It's part of it.
Yeah.
And so, but I wouldn't have known that because I'm thinking when people call me, I go out, I try to check in, I text and message. Yeah. But it's different. Quality time is different than just checking on someone or wishing someone a happy birthday. So.
And I think also we can't see our blind spots.
Right.
A blind spot is a blind spot. And I think, I don't know, for me as I drill down on reflecting on all the mistakes that I've made as well as all of the achievements that I have had and places and areas of my life where I want to be intentional, like love, like where's my husband?
Which we definitely got to unpack that.
Where you at? No. So those blind spots are key for other people.
So you send in and out. You're like, I need y'all to let me know.
I am very clear.
So good.
And actually, it's been working. In my clarity, I have always been a super girls girl. And probably about 3 years ago, I had some guy friends. I have some for real guy friends that I spend time with. But over the last 3 years, that circle has expanded. And I think it's because my energy has also shifted too. So, yes. LOVE.
LOVE. So
lifelong.
What is going on in the love life?
I'm dating. I'm trying to date. I'm trying to be open to that process. And, I think the other thing that has been a real learning from, I lost my grandmother last May and was a caregiver to her until I moved out here to LA she was sick for 13 years. And so I spent 12 of the 13 years taking care of her with my mother. And it was a very, very challenging illness. Is learning to be vulnerable and not just saying it, but it's very interesting to open up to that space. I have spent time in relationships. I don't want people to think, it's so funny, someone sent me something online that said that some website that was talking about how I never talk about my love life. And I don't. I'm very private, but I'm being very intentional about saying, I want love now. But it was so funny, on this site, it was though she says she was engaged, I was engaged when I was 25, she's never like been out with anyone publicly or anything like that. And I was like, so maybe they think that I'm hiding somebody, or maybe I don't know what so I have dated and have been in situationships as well as some relationships.
What are situations?
Because you know there's a difference between them.
No, I have no idea.
There is a difference between
A situation. No, that's my first time with the situation.
Oh goodness, the kids taught me that one. So the relationship is when you're clear that you're growing, either as a collective or individually, right? Like where you're like, I'm relating to this person. Situationship, which lasted very long, I will say.
A long situation.
It was a long situation. But the situationship was just, love for sure. But love love with its convenience.
Right.
Love with all of the nuances around what mitigates it or hinders it from going to something deeper. And there was love.
Yeah.
And real care, but for a long time I wasn't sure if I wanted to get married. I think for a long time I was like, I'm fine with a life partner. I'm fine with, not a baby daddy. I decided even after freezing my eggs that I wasn't gonna have a kid by myself. Like because now that I'm clear about this independent woman thing, and that's no slight to any independent woman, go for it. If that's the narrative that you wanna choose, I want help.
Yeah.
I want support.
Yeah.
I believe it. That is going to help me to continue to elevate to the next level. So, situationship was interesting. Now I'm ready for partnership, love, a deep, deep spiritual connection, and shared spiritual values.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people find themselves in what you call a situationship because, some people will call it a relationship, but the fact that you're not really articulating the commitment.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
So you knew what a situationship was.
Well, you just explained it to me, and I'm saying what it sounds like to me, right?
Yeah.
And so that is deep because, for me, that is a relationship, but I feel like society, we have things should look like this, A, B, C, and D. But I think everything that's teaching us via social media, movies, music, there's a lot of situationshipness going on. And so it's like this is what we're inputting into our consciousness.
Yeah.
So I like to talk about kind of like how you move from like, okay, I want something more, because I feel like you really do have to be intentional, just like you are with your business, because, about what it is that you're really wanting in order to have it.
So just for real, like seriously, you have to be intentional. I say that, especially to younger women who are so focused on the career, as I was, because that was what I was taught. I wasn't as focused on the relationship. Oftentimes we do it to the detriment of our self-care. Sometimes we do it to the detriment of healing our spiritual, emotional, and psychological wounds. Like you gotta be intentional about anything that you believe you want in this world, your finances. And I'm working at that. Like, how do I carve out time to be intentional about that? I have a girlfriend, Gracia, who's just like, I'm spending 3 hours a week working on my finances. Intentionality. I think sometimes fear factor, whatever it is, like, it's hard to do, but that's intentional. So I think when I moved from that to, I moved from being okay with the situationship, because it was a great situationship. We traveled the world, we spent great time. He advised with my business, like the great, great moments. But when I got clear, like I really want to share life with someone, like,
and it wasn't possible with that person?
With this person, like, he's just in a different place than I am. Divorced, older man, father of children, moving on to another career after having a very illustrious, and so we were just in different spaces. And I knew that when we met, but I never expected it to become anything more than a friendship, nonetheless a situationship. So when I got to that place, probably about 4 years ago is when I think I started to get restless being in New York, maybe 5 years ago, 4.5, 5 years ago. I was like, what's next? what does that look like for me? And, I prayed on it because I'm a person of faith. And what kept coming back to me is even with the training and the teachings of my mother and my grandmother who demonstrated excellency as single Black women, was I want to be excellent with and alongside and fully, not partially, not in these quadrants of life, not with the travel life, not in the business life, not in this part, but like in my full life. And it just became clear to me.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Clarity is a beautiful thing.
Oh my God. And sometimes it's like hard to you get clear, you're like, now I got to put in all this work, because once your vision is there, it still requires a lot of steps in order to actualize that. And in relationship, you have to also be intentional about how you develop yourself so that you're prepared for that relationship.
Right.
So that's a whole other level of work and intentionality.
And I know you say you wanted to talk about love.
Yes.
So what is love? What is your definition?
Oh my gosh. Love meets you where you are, but it challenges you to where you want to go. Love is full. Love is hopeful. Love is promising. Love is intentional. Love is God. Love is elevating.
You love eating?
I like eating. I don't love eating anymore.
Oh, no?
You
I mean, I'm kind of hungry right now. You don't love eating.
I'm in the middle of a fast too right now, so I think it's like you gave me this big old mason jar of water. I was like, I do like, so look, I am a foodie, so I enjoy amazing food. Maybe it's situational. No, maybe it's circumstantial. Since I just started this today, ask me in 3 weeks if I like eating. When I'm back to gorging. No, I'm kidding.
But I love food.
I love food. Okay. I like drinking more than I like eating. It's part of the problem.
Alcohol or just water?
Alcohol. That's why I'm fasting, y'all. Like, no, I was like, God, I need a level of clarity so I can stop blaming it on the alcohol.
Don't blame it on the alcohol. Blame it on So your love, you feeling love, you feel that you have reached this level of, in yourself, in your business, like you're loving yourself, you love all the things you're creating. Don't know where you're pivoting to.
I don't know if I love all the things I'm creating. I feel fortunate to create a lot of the things that I am, but it's a process, so as a producer and as a creator, I'm like right now have 2 deals that are being negotiated that for concepts that I developed 2 and 3 years ago. So people don't realize that that's such a process. I mean, you're constantly still meeting. We shot the first season of Lens of Culture on TV1, on TV1's Clio TV, which I was a producer on with Elton Anderson as my co-host. It took me all over the world, which I'm really, really grateful for. I've decided I won't be going back for a season 2. This is the first time I'm saying that publicly. Yeah, because
it's travel.
Yes, but at 42, when you want to be intentional about love, you have to prioritize that.
Right.
If I'm literally on a plane without necessarily knowing, it becomes a little bit more challenging. And where I am in my life is wanting to be a lot more focused on the big things. So what is the big thing? Great. The show is coming back a second season, though. It will be back. Go Elton and whoever your new co-hosts are, and my team at Powerhouse Productions and the team at TV1 who have been so amazing to me. And I'm really, really grateful. For me, I have to, when you get back to not only self-care, but just understanding, running a business, traveling for weeks at a time. You also always have to ask, what is the return on investment?
Right.
What is the ROI in life, in love, in relationships, in business, in the work that you do, and how you spend your time? What is the ROI? And that's not to make anything necessarily so transactional, as much as it is to reconcile the purpose of it and the intention of it and what the yield is, not only for you, but for the impact that you want to have in the world. So I'm just,
That's beautiful because you give a lot.
Yes.
And it's like, so speaking of return on investment, the ROI, like how are you receiving?
Yes.
And with someone that is so talented, you do so much creatively, you do so much physically. And I think that is a point that I had to realize that 50-50 is like, no, you need to get poured into a lot.
Yes.
Because, depending on how much you do, everyone has different levels. Like you were saying, everyone's not going to function at the same level. But the way you're functioning, you have to get a lot poured back into you.
So my sister's circle, my mom, my dad, I have like the craziest network of girlfriends. Crazy, they're baddies, but also just they hold me down. And they have held me down over the last 3 years of, crazy transition. And I have a network of amazing guy friends too. I feel like I got to shout them out. Emil, Brett, Jeff, love you guys. They have held me down as well.
What makes a good girlfriend, or what makes a good friend, period?
A good friend. Oh my gosh. Here's one thing that I realize about people that talk about friendship and don't really live friendship. Friendship is not just showing up when the sun is shining. Friendship is calling and saying, I realize the sun is not shining. Here's an umbrella.
Right.
Friendship is, for me, those who are literally interceding and praying on my behalf when I don't have the words to pray for myself. Friendship is laughter. Friendship is tears, or our tears. Friendship really has been my lifeline, especially during the season of unknown. Friendship is forgiveness.
Right.
Friendship is thinking the best of you when you think the worst of yourself. It's been crazy. I feel so fortunate though, because I was really nurtured in sisterly and friend tight environments, going to an all girls high school and then going to Spelman, where I really it was always so weird to me when I would meet women who were like, I can't deal with women. I'd be like,
no.
I'd be like, what? Well, who you dealing with? What happened? And then, going into the world of magazines, even though at times it was very, very competitive. It was a women-led industry for the most part. I mean, both, I would probably say it, Oprah and Harper's and 17, our staff was 95% women, except for the few guys on the sales side and maybe a couple that were in editorial. So I just really have an appreciation for that. It actually made it a lot more surprising over the last, Jeff and Emil have been friends for a long time, but Brett and Steve and just other friends, like platonic friends,
Right.
that have come into my life, or even maybe the ones that are less platonic, but platonic for now until we see what if. Just how I've been able to receive that. And I think that that's also in my desire to meet love and rise up to love and experience love fully. Me learning that those pieces of me that are divinely feminine, how to lean into those as well as the masculine.
Right.
And so I think, there has been a very interesting, I don't like to use this term because I don't think that men are hard and women are soft, but there's been this divinely kind of like natural and organic acceptance and celebration of my true femininity. Like really.
And what does that look like for you?
It looks like compassion. It looks like being unafraid to be emotional. It looks like sharing my truth regardless of how painful it is, because I realize that truth is who we are. It is celebrating all of this physical being and honoring it, like fully honoring it, which is why like working out is so important to me. It's getting a Brazilian wax.
Hey.
I leave my wax session and I'm like, Lord, God is good.
I can't get waxed. I feel like they make all these ingrown hairs, and I just can't. I'm a shaver.
Yeah.
I'm a shaver. I can't not shave. And then you have to wait so long before you can get it again.
Well, see, I'm also, that's the other thing as an entrepreneur, I'm very organized and systematic. So like everything is on the schedule.
Okay.
So I'm an every 4-week girl.
Okay.
But also I've been getting waxed for 20 years, so it just grows differently. So yes, it just grows differently. But if not a wax, shave, laser, but that to me is divinely feminine. No shade to anyone who loves all of their
bush.
Who loves it all. like, and if that's your thing, by all means.
Yeah.
When I leave my wax, I feel like I'm walking on cloud 27,000 trillion.
I mean, I feel like we can sit there for a second because I feel like whatever beauty feels like
to
for
you,
is a beautiful thing. And, you know, anyone listening, I feel like, you know, I honor you saying that, and you wax and I shave. And, you know, I think it's beautiful. And I feel like we're getting that more now, especially with social media. People just really feeling like, what is beautiful to me, and why that doesn't have to look like what Ty and Koya says, you know? And I feel like the more that we look at all these different things as inspiration, not like the law, I feel like that's where we've gotten lost along the way.
Yep.
Because even with relationships that we're, you know, talking about, the relationship with self, it's like whenever you're trying to carbon copy someone else, you're never going to get it right. Like you literally have to figure out what works for you.
Speak. And also recognize like what works for you is your superpower. Like that is the uniqueness. And I know it sounds so cliche, but like, you know, that's why even as we talked earlier about like the social media piece and how do you get there and how, it's one thing to be inspired by someone's journey. It's one thing, it's another thing to extract the elements of that person's journey and figure out what is applicable to your journey.
Right.
Because there's no carbon copy in terms of even like step by step here, do this, you'll get here. We buy into that, and then we end up feeling disappointed when it doesn't work because your superpower is what you bring to it.
Right.
Your superpower is how you actualize or manifest what your God-given destiny is or what is meant for you or what you want to create. Like that's your superpower. And to do it in your way, your own way, that sets you apart.
Right. That is beautiful. So you waxing, you feeling good, you loving yourself up. And when it comes to intentionality, this manifestation, we're going to put a little, a questionnaire online for your ideal partner.
Oh, is that what we're doing? Did you just come up with this?
Yeah. Doesn't it sound good?
Look, I was like, wait a minute.
Thinks it sounds good. Like a good idea.
The call is out.
The call is out. Okay, here we go. Your ideal partner.
He is a man of God. He is and a man of God, and I mean really like a man of God in deep faith. I shared with someone recently, I had this crazy, and I'm Christian, but I grew up with a sister who's Jewish. I grew up with an uncle who's Muslim. I went to Catholic school, so I can recite most of those things. I was super, super exposed. So I'm a person of faith, but I am Christian, and I enjoy Christian practices in order to develop my faith. But I read everything.
Right.
And I'm open to that. But I have had, the idea of worshiping and being in honor and reverence to God with my partner is paramount. And then secondarily, he can't be no buster. Like, no, I sound like so like country. I'm from Jersey anyway. But, you know, he has to have his stuff together.
There's levels to that stuff together. So you want someone stuff together. What does that look like?
Well, equally yoked in terms of spirit, emotional, and psychological, but he has to be he has to be evolving and growing. I will say this, and you said something that made me think about this before. It's like, I also am very clear of what I have to give at this current moment in life. I want a co-pilot in life, but I also recognize that I might need him to be the pilot right now in some areas.
Right.
In some things. Yeah, he likes to have a great time because I'm a turn up. Like,
You know, turn up.
yeah.
You got to be able to turn up with you, like Bonnie and Clyde. Like, let's
Like
take it.
we gotta I like adventure. I like enjoyment. I love working. I want to build business with my husband. Like that's something I've always thought about.
So power couple. You gotta.
Yeah, and I think power couple in the sense like he might be like very much back, you know,
Behind the scenes.
behind the scenes, and you know, I've never seen myself with someone who is too visible. Because as I said earlier, I can be like this person who like really like doesn't want to necessarily be always on and in front. Definitely mature. Was at my age, she probably has some kids. Open it at
Ideal.
ideal number of kids.
Ideal kids or not.
Yeah.
Or number.
Yeah. No, ideally kids.
Ideally, he has kids.
Ideally, he has kids, but he has to want more too.
Okay.
But he has to. I mean, at this point, ideally, because if not, I'm questioning. Like, if you're 45 and above, and you ain't, I'm like, what happened? But I mean, who knows? There might be some situation where.
Ideally, this is your reality. So you would like to paint your man to have previous kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ideally, they're also at least some of them, or one of them, or eight. I don't know, girl. Koya. Dang it!
What? You trying to manifest?
At least one of them is young enough to where I can develop a really strong relationship with. Because at certain ages, like the kids won't be checking for you. So I want to be a real stepmother, but I also want to have and possibly adopt my own children as well. And if he has children and exes and what have you, I see myself like hosting like the biggest, like everybody come, bring your husband, bring your new boo. Like I want love.
Oh, I love it. It just makes my heart smile.
Does it? Who you got?
I love talking about love.
Who you got?
I got,
Oh, okay.
I got a little something.
Okay. What you working with?
I'm working with a little bit.
Okay, good.
We'll see what
You
happens.
sharing?
We'll see
Is
what
it new?
manifesting. Yeah, I'm sharing your podcast.
Wait, now she's like, wait a minute, this is my podcast. I'm talking to you and getting your tea, getting your water.
I'll spill the tea. I am dating.
Good.
And I feel like now
That means one person or multiple people. I'm always so confused about that.
technically I'm dating multiple people, technically.
yeah.
But I am dating someone that I really like.
So there's okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, but technically until I'm married, I'm dating.
Yes, sis, I agree.
Because at this point, I've told myself that I want a committed relationship, and then I do want to get married and have children. So, but what I found lately is the more that I really taken the time to get to know myself, and I think I've shifted from being a country girl who wants to get married out of high school and have 8 kids to and very much only knew a codependent lifestyle from my parents to independent and traveling. And so the transition from that woman into the woman I am now and really understanding who I am individually, it's been a lot.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of healing. There's been a lot of growth. There's been a lot. And so I'm finally to the place where I realized being multifaceted, I was kind of like the runaway bride. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Let's do it all. Because I love so much stuff.
Yeah.
But grew, to understand, it was really important for me to articulate exactly what I'm asking you, which is why I'm doing it. Like, what do you want? What do you really want? What is your idea? If you could have exactly what? And I had to ask myself that so many times. And I asked myself that after every relationship, because every relationship teaches me more and more what I want.
Exactly. Which is why when young people, first of all, the idea of, and I have a friend who got married at 20. Not actually a guy friend, who got married at 20. And I was like, you don't really know yourself then to know that. And so not to coach, but I do, but inspire younger women who may come from a certain place. Pragmatically, the chances of the person that you're supposed to marry out of the trillions of people in the world being in your high school class, I mean, just from a number statistically, that sounds crazy to me. It can happen, and it might work. I think
100 years ago, 50 years ago, when we didn't have the advancements of social media where everyone's swiping left or swiping right, or you could, see somebody on Snap and be like, oh, that's my friend. Like, the chances of that. But the way that we get to know ourselves are through our relationships, both platonic or otherwise.
Right.
And so those experiences, I think, teach us. And so what I will say is that I'm 42 years old. I know a lot about Tae Bo Shum, and I'm very, very clear. You asked about the other things that I need, and he has to be honest. He has to be communicative. I can't deal with I don't like people who tell tales.
Right.
And then there has to be some type of crazy physical energy. I don't have this specific type. I've dated all height ranges. I've dated all ethnicities. I've dated various aesthetics and men. Like, it's fine. But I have to look, there has to be something that happens here where I'm like, oof, come here. Because on the days when I'm not feeling you spiritually, emotionally, or psychologically, that physical got to kick in. What I need.
Hey,
Yes.
it's really important. And I feel like, too, we have grown to, as women, sometimes we don't talk about what we need. And I think that's also a transition from old school, marriage out of high school, as you mentioned, until now. We know what we want, what we desire, and how we want to be loved. When before, it's just like, okay, yes, if you give me what I want, I'll give you what you want. And that's just the thing.
That's
it's not
just
a
it.
conversation about what does it look like or feel like to you to be fully fulfilled, and asking that of a partner.
And also, not just asking those questions, there's a little bit of a training process that happens in that too. You can't expect people to come to the table and just because you express us what you want and what you need, for them to fully be able to actualize that and to provide that. And so I think obviously you have to have your priorities and be like, okay, well, I'm willing to share with you this and help teach you to understand what I need, and vice versa. It was someone, that I've been out with before, actually said to me, he was like, he hasn't had a co-pilot ever. And he said to me, in looking at his past relationships, what other women hadn't done for him in terms of thoughtfulness and what have you. And I'm a huge believer. Now, some men don't need that. Some people don't require that. There are some partners who, you have to understand what your love language is and what resonates. And being thoughtful is a part of who I am. And so if it's uncomfortable for you, for me to ask, what can I do to support you? What can I do to help? And really mean it, then I'm not the woman for you either. So I think, and there are people that don't necessarily receive the same way. And also there are times in relationships, first of all, I don't believe anything is 50-50. That thing that people says, all things being equal, even if you look at your tires and the monitor on the tires on your car, one might be 36, one might be 38. One might be 41, another one might be 37. No, nothing is all things being equal.
Right.
So when we're literally looking for, and this might be completely antithetical to what you teach in your practice of yoga, the idea of balance is a misnomer for me. We need to seek harmony. And so in a relationship, my philosophy is that sometimes it might be 30-70. What I realize where I am right now, I probably, with my transition, with me trying to figure out where I'm going to live, with me trying to figure out what the next project is and what it looks like and what I want to devote my energy and time to, with me trying to figure out how to reinvest, whatever, I might only have 40% of this 100% to give right now. So if you're requiring more, and vice versa. So I just think that, being honest with yourself about understanding the dynamics of a relationship and being clear about what works for you, and working together to reconcile, to be sure that each person is supported and loved in what their desires and their needs are.
That's beautiful. All right, we got a rapid fire for you.
Okay.
Favorite book?
The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Love.
Yep.
Favorite movie?
Oh my gosh. So I used to say Shawshank Redemption. I used to love that movie. Favorite movie? Boys in the Hood.
Oh my God, that's such a good one.
Yeah, Boys in the Hood is a good, I love Boys in the Hood. I'm not by any stretch a movie buff because my memory is like really bad. Like even after I see things, like I quickly forget. But I love watching documentaries, so I just watched the Mike Wallace doc. I also just recently saw Harriet.
That was amazing.
Which was Cynthia. I didn't get to see her the other night at ABFF where she was honored with the Rising Star Award. But Cynthia and I share a makeup artist, and we also have known each other from New York when she was on Broadway.
Your makeup artist.
Yes, she's actually not. She's in Sherman Oaks, yeah. But I have a couple here that are amazing, so I'll give them to you. I did this today though.
All right. I like the natural.
Okay.
The natural.
Yeah, a natural
contour.
beat, a natural nice beat. I get it. But love Cynthia. I thought she was amazing. What I with movies, and this is sugar. Let me shut up. Rapid fire. Go ahead.
That's okay. Like
I'm like,
there are
shut
actually
up, Ty.
no rules.
Like
there are no rules.
Like that's when you get Tybo Shop the talker. It's like, oh yeah. But I love culture. So for me, anything that really kind of looks at culture, dissects culture, and/or inspires culture, or is a revisit of culture, is really fun to me.
I love that. And what would you tell your 16-year-old self? If you could tell her anything.
You have no idea. You are responsible for the path that you take, and you have to own that path. It's going to change. The idea of honoring your mother and father is facts. And to love yourself is an understatement. I think you'll learn to love yourself because you will know her. You'll get to know her. I had no idea what that really meant at 16. No clue. That sweet 16 party you're trying to throw is not everything, honey. Like, stop stressing. That ain't it.
And last question, how do you get loved up?
Ooh, by me or by others?
By you.
Oh. You see where my mind is.
We're going to do an extended version, okay?
Actually, I'm like...
Part 2.
You know what? So my favorite thing to do right now is a couple things. I'll give you favorite things to do. Hike, train, spend time with my godchildren, and pray.
Powerful. I could talk to you forever, but thank you so much for
You're
coming
like, I ain't got no
today.
time. Thank you,
We're going to
Koya.
give some love.
Thank you so
We're
much.
going to give some love to our people. We're going to bring the heart in, do this heart hand.
Okay.
Until next time, love yourself, love others, and love the planet. Throw it at them. Hey.